Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and you know what time it is. Yes, it's time to what? Help you reach your defined level of success. How are we going to do that? By helping you discover and develop your gifts. Yes. See, this week we are talking about the infrastructure of you. You, Y-O-U, because you are your biggest asset. See, yesterday on Motivation Monday, we established a powerful truth. Your private routines are auditing your public leadership. But today we move outwards because your routines are not developing in isolation. They are developing inside environments. And many high capacity leaders are trying to improve their focus, their discipline, emotional stability, execution, leadership consistency without auditing the space influencing them every single day. So today's conversation is environment shape human performance. And this is not just about physical space, people. Offices, homes, rooms. This is also about digital environment, emotional atmosphere, relational circles, sensory overload, attention fragmentation, and psychological climates. See, many people think exhaustion only comes from hard work. Sometimes exhaustion comes from environmental fractions. That means your surroundings may be silently draining your focus, your creativity, emotional energy, your cognitive clarity, and your leadership capacity. See, today we are auditing our perimeters. Let's look at Proverbs 13:20. He that walketh with wise men should be wise, but a companion of fools shall be destroyed. Notice, scripture connects wisdom to environment. Who you walk with, who you stay around, and who you repeatedly surround your mind. Because repeated exposure eventually changes what feels normal. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Join us on this heavenly journey, one song at a time, Wave Radio.
It is Triumph Tuesday, and you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and today we are talking about environment shape human performance. Yes. See, your environment is training you. Most people think environments are passive. They are not. Environments are constantly shaping your behavior, your thinking, your emotional tone, your attention, the way you react, and your performance patterns. That means the spaces you repeatedly occupy are training you psychologically over time. See, many people underestimate how much clutter, how much noise, how much tension, how much chaos, how much disorganization, and how much negativity affects the nervous system. But repeated exposure changes behavior patterns. See, eventually people normalize what they repeatedly tolerate. Repeated exposure eventually becomes behavior normalization. That's environmental psychology. Your environment is either feeding your focus or draining your capacity. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
You're riding the waves of faith and grace on Wave Radio.
If you just tuned in and you're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this beautiful Triumph Tuesday, and we are talking about environments shapes human performance. Let's talk about clutter creates cognitive friction. A lot of us like clutters in certain places. It might be the office, might be the garage, it might be in your makeup room, wherever you like clutter. We have some type of clutter somewhere. And see, clutter is not just visible. Clutter creates mental friction. Let's look at research. Research shows when environments are overloaded visually, the brain has to work harder to process information. See, this means clutter quietly consumes mental energy. And many leaders are trying to think strategically inside disorganized environments. Chaotic workspaces, overloaded schedule, and mentally congested atmospheres. And eventually, the environment starts taxing cognitive performance. That's why clutter often creates procrastination, distractions, indecision, mental fatigue, and reduced focus. Not because people are lazy, but because the environment is increasing mental resistance. See, your environment can either reduce friction or silently produce it. That's leadership architecture. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise here on Wave Radio, and I'm your host, the most handsomest host in the world, Mr. Demetrius L. Brown. We got to have some fun, people. We got to have some fun. We got to laugh. We got to smile. We got to crack some jokes. But today, we are talking about environments shape human performance. See, attention is a leadership asset. Attention is one of leadership's greatest resources. But modern environments constantly compete for attention. Notifications, messages, alerts, emails, social media, noise, interruptions. All day long, the mind is being fragmented. And research shows when people are interrupted frequently, it takes significant time for the brain to fully refocus on deep work again. See, that means many leaders are not exhausted from hard work alone. They are mentally drained from consistent interruptions. And over time, fragmented attention weakens, again, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna keep repeating this. It weakens creativity, strategic thinking, emotional patience, and leadership presence. Attention fragmentation slowly weakens executive performance. That's why high performers protect focus intentionally. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
Thank you for joining me on this good Tuesday afternoon, morning, wherever you are. And even if you're listening to the replay, your day might be somewhere where I'm not right now, because right now it is afternoon here in Durham, North Carolina. But we are talking about environment shape human performance. Let's talk about your phone is affecting your nervous system, because a lot of us can't put it down. We're always looking at it. It's right by our side. I'm guilty. I'm guilty, people. I'm guilty. So many people think their phone is only a tool. But for many leaders, the phone has become a stress trigger, an urgency machine, an interruption system, and an emotional overload device. See, constant accessibility trains the nervous system to stay alert continuously. That means even during moments of rest, the brain struggles to fully settle. And eventually, people begin living in a state of constant mental activation that affects their sleep, emotional regulation, it affects their focus, it affects their patience, and it affects their clarity. See, constant accessibility creates invisible mental exhaustion. That's why boundaries matter. Not because you are avoiding responsibility, but because leadership requires protected mental bandwidth. And I'm going to say this again. A lot of y'all are probably saying, I'm not leading a business. I'm not leading a corporation. I'm not leading nothing. I'm just an average, everyday person. But let me tell you something. You are a brand. You are leading something. You are leading your life. And if you have a family, you are leading your family's life. So you have to be able to lead your life. You are a leader. And I want you and I need you to protect yourself with boundaries. Because leadership requires protected mental bandwidth. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You got a shout out or request, hit us up on Wave Radio. That's WAYVVE Radio. We would like to hear from you and thank you for supporting us. We really do appreciate your support, and I thank you for listening to the Afternoon Praise. Now, let's talk about atmospheres affect behavior. See, atmospheres train behavior. People absorb environments unconsciously. If a person repeatedly lives inside panic, negativity, conflict, emotional instability, urgency, the nervous system slowly adapts to those rhythms, and eventually chaos feels normal. That's why emotional atmospheres matter, because environments affect the way you communicate, they affect your emotional stability, they affect the way you make decisions, they affect your confidence, and they affect your creativity. See, emotional climates eventually shape behavior patterns. That's relationship psychology. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. People absorb emotional energy. See, human beings absorb emotional energy more than they realize. If leaders stay surrounded by fear, negativity, victim mindsets, emotional instability, and constant panic, the body slowly absorbs those patterns. That's why some people feel emotionally exhausted after certain conversations or environments. The atmosphere itself is draining energy, and many leaders are trying to build peace, focus, confidence, and stability while remaining connected to emotionally unhealthy environments. See, people unconsciously absorb the emotional climate that they stay connected to. If you don't believe me, do the research. This is behavioral science. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Bringing the sounds of heaven 24/7, Wave Radio.
If you're just tuning in, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise on this Triumph Tuesday, and we are talking about environments shape human performance. And I just want to say this. I thank God for downloading in me what to speak about, what to talk about, because from these shows and research, I believe God is working on me through these shows also, because I've learned a lot through research and through study. And I hope you take this information too and use what you can use. And I want you to change yourself for the best. Because if you're listening and if you believe that God gave you a promise, you are still here because God is going to fulfill that promise. But I want you to be obedient and stay in the will of God. And I need you to function the way you need to function. So don't just listen to these shows, study these shows. Go back and listen to them. Listen and read the articles. Okay, but let's talk about relationships influence performance. Relationships affect performance more than most people realize, because environments are not only physical, they are relational. See, the people around you, I'm gonna say that again, the people around you, I'm gonna say it again, but I'm gonna say it slower. The people around you influence your expectations, your emotional tone, your standards, your confidence, your urgency, and your thinking patterns. That means unhealthy relational environments can quietly reduce your focus, increase your anxiety. It can weaken your confidence. It can drain your emotional energy. See, many people are trying to grow while surrounded by environments that constantly pull them backwards psychologically. Some environments do not support your future, people. They reinforce your limitations. This is leadership awareness. Be aware who you are surrounding yourself with. Some people are rooting for you. Some people are not rooting for you. Some people who are in your face smiling, you think they're celebrating you, but they just trying to stay in your business. They're trying to bring you down. Some people, you want people to pray for you, but some people are preying on you. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. Let's talk about environmental chaos creates mental exhaustion. See, many people think they are burned out from responsibility alone, but sometimes they are exhausted from environmental chaos. Constant noise, constant interruptions, constant urgencies, constant tension, and constant stimulation. See, over time, the mind becomes overloaded, and overloaded environments often produce emotional fatigue, poor focus, reactive thinking, mental congestion, reduced clarity. That's why peace matters. That's why peace matters. See, your peace, you have to get it, keep it strategically. Peace is not laziness. Peace protects your cognitive function. Chaotic environments slowly drain mental capacity. That's performance psychology. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown, and we are talking about environments shape human performance. See, high performers design environments intentionally. Higher performers rarely leave environments to chance. They intentionally build their routines, they build their space, they build their boundaries, they build their schedules, they build their workflows, and they build recovery environments because they understand environments affect execution. That means leadership maturity includes environmental stewardship. You cannot repeatedly expose yourself to distraction. You cannot repeatedly expose yourself to disorder. You cannot repeatedly expose yourself to emotional instability or sensory overload and then expect consistent high-level performance. See, high performance build environments that protect their focus. Protect your focus, people. Put some boundaries in place. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're tuned in to the Afternoon Praise. And again, I just want to thank you for joining me today. And somebody said I sound better. I feel better today. You can still hear it in me a little bit, the little congestion. So again, I got to keep pushing though. Hey, let's talk about digital environments shape mental health. Yeah, we about to step on some toes here. Yes, we are. We already did when we talked about the phone, but here we go. See, digital environments are environments too. What people watch, what you consume, what you scroll, absorb, and what you listen to affects mental and emotional patterns over time. And constant exposure to outrage, negativity, comparison, fear, emotional overload changes emotional chemistry gradually. See, eventually, digital environments begin influencing confidence, your focus, emotional regulation, worldview, energy levels. You start comparing yourself to other people. How did they get that? But not realizing they rented that just to be on social media. Look at now all these people who committed this PPP fraud. They're going to jail. They stole from people. They told people, hey, I can help you do this, do that, but they were lying. They made their money just by getting people money because they say they can help them. You got to stop comparing yourself to people. You got to stop letting these digital platforms get you in mental chaos. See, what repeatedly enter your mind eventually affect your internal atmosphere. We have to have great mental stewardship, people. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and we are talking about environment-shaped human performance. See, Jesus practiced environmental separation. Jesus constantly withdrew from crowds, not because he lacked power, but because he understood the importance of environmental separation. Let's look at Luke 5, verses 16. And he withdrew himself into the wilderness and prayed. Jesus intentionally stepped away from noise, pressure, emotional demands, crowds, overstimulation to restore his alignment. That is leadership wisdom. We must learn how to step away to restore ourselves. Many people think nonstop accessibility proves strength. Sometimes wisdom look like strategic separation. Separation protects clarity. It's all right to separate from people at certain times, certain moments. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise, and this is Triumph Tuesday. Let's talk about Nehemiah. See, Nehemiah inspected the environment first. See, when Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem, he inspected the wall before rebuilding anything. Why? Because environments matter. Broken walls represented vulnerability. It represented disorder. It represented exposure. And the broken wall represented the lack of protection. And many people are trying to build vision while leaving the gate of their environment completely open. See, open to distractions, open to negativity, open to toxic voices, open to emotional instability, and open to unnecessary access. See, unprotected environments eventually weakens performance. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. We always talk about the unseen. The unseen. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. See, some environments are quietly draining you. Not every draining environment looks dramatic. Some environments quietly deplete your energy, increases stress, reduce clarity, weakens motivation, and create tensions. And because the effect happens gradually, many people normalize it. That's dangerous, people, because eventually people adapt to unhealthy environments so long that dysfunction begins feeling familiar. Repeated exposure can make dysfunction feel normal. That's called environmental conditioning. People, We are being conditioned. That's why we have to sit back, take some time to ourselves and evaluate our own lives. We're so quick to evaluate somebody else's life, what somebody else is doing. But we are slow to sit back and say, what's going on in my life? While we are being conditioning by our environment. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. You got to request a shout out? Come on, hit us up. We got you. But let's talk about your environment should support your assignment. And that's why from the beginning, I was big on purpose. You must understand your purpose. You must understand why you are here, why you were created. So that, again, this makes sense to you. Your environment should support your assignment. See, many leaders build environments that contradict their assignments. They say they want focus. They say they want peace. They say they want discipline. They say they want growth. They say they want clarity. But their environment constantly produces distractions, urgency, clutter, emotional exhaustion, fragmentation, and eventually the environment begins working against the vision. That's why intentional environment design matters. Your environment should support your future, not sabotage it. And I'm going to reiterate this. When I say leaders, I'm not talking about just pastors, preachers, business owners. I'm talking about you, because you are the brand. You are a leader in your own right, in your own space. You're leading yourself. You're leading your family. So you are the leader. So yes, I'm talking to you. Because I know some of y'all be like, well, shoot, I ain't no leader. He ain't talking to me. Yeah, I'm talking to you. Hey, you're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown. Let's talk about, we need to audit our perimeter. Today is not just inspiration. Today is an audit. An audit of what? Hey, I'm glad you asked. An audit of your space, an audit of your atmosphere, your digital exposure. You need to audit your emotional environments. You need to audit your relationships. You need to audit your accessibility. Audit your interruptions. Because environments are shaping your behavior. It's shaping your emotional stability. It's shaping your leadership performance. And it's shaping your cognitive clarity. Whether people realize it or not, stop fighting environments you have the power to redesign. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I'm your host, Demetrius L. Brown.
Catch the wave. You're listening to Wave Radio, your home for uplifting gospel music.
You just tuned in to the Afternoon Praise, and my time is up. So again, if you miss any part of the show, you can go back to my YouTube page and listen to the show. That's the Business Point Guard. The replay will be up at 6 o'clock. Yes, it will be. But I need you to go back and re-listen. Even if you listen to the whole show, I want you to go back and just listen and study these shows. But let me leave you with this. Let's look at Romans 12, verse 2. And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. See, transformation requires intentional environments. This week, we are building the infrastructure of you. Yesterday, we discussed private routines. Today, we expose environmental influence. Because environment shape performance. Atmospheres affect behavior. Repeated exposure changes thinking. Attention affects leadership. And emotional climates affect execution. And remember this, people. Your environment is either protecting your potential or silently draining it. So audit your perimeter. Protect your focus, protect your peace, protect your emotional bandwidth, protect your future, because environment shape human performance. You're listening to the Afternoon Praise. I am out of here, and I will catch you tomorrow on Build a Brand Wednesday. So tell a family member, tell a friend to tune in to the Afternoon Praise with Demetrius L. Brown. Hey, I am out of here. Peace.
Stay tuned and stay blessed here on Wave Radio.